Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look at the life and philosophy of Epictetus.
One of the most influential Stoic thinkers of all time.
And we have some great excerpts to guide us from Epictetus, a Stoic and Socratic guide to life,
By Along.
published by Oxford University Press. Our mission today is to uncover the most important things to know about Epictetus, his connection to Socrates, and how his ideas can be applied to life today.
And there's some really fascinating things about Epictetus that I think people will find surprising.
Like what?
Well, did you know that his teachings were admired by historical figures like Marcus Aurelius
Oh, wow, the Roman emperor.
and even Thomas Jefferson?
Really? That's amazing. So to start, who was Epictetus and what made him so influential?
Well, Epictetus was born a slave
A slave.
in Hierapolis, which is now modern-day Turkey,
Hmm.
sometime around 50 to 60 AD.
So he started life facing incredible adversity.
He did. And he eventually ended up in Rome.
What happened in Rome?
He was a slave in the court of Emperor Nero.
Wow. To go from a slave in an emperor's court to one of the most renowned philosophers, that's an incredible journey. What was it about his teachings that resonated with people even back then?
Well, his teachings, as preserved by his student Arian, focused on practicality.
Practicality.
He wasn't interested in those kind of abstract philosophical debates.
Oh, I see. So like how to live a good life kind of stuff.
Exactly. He wanted to show people how to apply Stoic principles
Okay.
to the challenges they faced every day.
Like real world problems.
Exactly. How to navigate difficult situations and ultimately how to live a virtuous and fulfilling life.
It's interesting because we don't actually have that much biographical information about him.
You're right. The biographical details about Epictetus are quite scarce.
So it seems like he focused more on just sharing wisdom than on building a personal legacy.
Exactly. He was much more interested in passing on these practical tools for living a good life. But what is fascinating is that while we may lack specific details about his life, his teachings are filled with these vivid examples. And sometimes they are kind of shocking.
Shocking.
Drawn from everyday life. He really used these examples to make his points relatable.
And memorable.
Yes, exactly.
So instead of getting lost in those abstract theories, he was really bringing philosophy down to earth.
Exactly.
I like that. So before we get into his specific teachings, can you give us a quick overview of Stoicism in general? What were the core principles that kind of shaped Epictetus's worldview?
Sure. At its core, Stoicism emphasizes understanding the rational order of the universe
Okay.
and accepting what we cannot control. The Stoics believed that the universe is governed by a divine principle.
Okay.
You could call it God, Zeus, nature.
Logos, maybe.
Yeah, logos. And that everything happens for a reason.
Okay.
But this doesn't mean passive acceptance.
Oh, interesting.
Whatever fate throws our way.
So it's not about just giving up?
Not at all. It's about recognizing that true freedom and happiness
Okay.
come from focusing on what we can control.
So focusing your energy where it matters.
Exactly. Which is our own thoughts, judgments, and actions.
It sounds like a very proactive approach to life.
It is. It's about actively engaging with the world,
Okay.
using reason as our guide.
Okay.
You see, we can't control external events, but we can control how we react to them.
So it's not resignation. It's about mastering your own response.
Yeah.
That's where Epictetus's teachings become incredibly relevant, right?
Yeah.
He gives us the tools to do that.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
He gives us the tools and techniques to master our inner world, to navigate those ups and downs of life with greater resilience.
Now, you mentioned that Epictetus drew inspiration from Socrates. What's that connection about?
Well, Socrates is known for that method of questioning.
The Socratic method.
Socratic elenchus.
Right.
It's all about challenging assumptions and prompting self-discovery.
So he didn't just give answers.
No. Instead of providing ready-made answers, he used questions
I see.
to expose those inconsistencies in thinking and guide people towards their own truths.
Okay, so he's empowering them to find their own way.
Exactly. And Epictetus saw himself as following in those footsteps.
Interesting.
He used dialogue and questioning.
So it's less about dictating rules and more about encouraging critical thinking.
Precisely. It's about empowering individuals to take control of their own mental and emotional well-being.
I like that. Now, you mentioned something called Epictetus's 3 fields of study before. What are those? How do they work to cultivate a more resilient mind?
Well, he breaks down the process of mental discipline into 3 interconnected areas.
Okay.
The first is our desires and aversions.
Okay. What does that mean?
It involves learning to control what we want and don't want, understanding that attaching our happiness to external things leads to frustration.
Right, because we can't always get what we want.
The second field focuses on our actions,
Actions.
or more specifically, our impulses to act.
Okay.
This is where virtue comes into play.
Okay.
It's about learning to act in accordance with reason.
So not just acting out of emotion.
Right. And then finally, the third field deals with something called assent.
Assent? I'm not familiar with that term.
Assent is how we give our mental agreement to things. It involves carefully examining our impressions and judgments.
Before we just accept them.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our perceptions aren't always accurate.
Oh, interesting. So it's about challenging our assumptions and biases.
Precisely. And recognizing that we have the power to choose how we interpret the world around us.
So it's all about taking control of our own minds, our own interpretations.
That's the brilliance of his approach. He recognized that training the mind is an ongoing process, and he provided this really structured framework to help us develop the mental and emotional skills necessary for life.
It's like he created a mental gym.
A mental gym. I like that.
So you mentioned before that these three fields of study connect to the broader structure of Stoic philosophy. Can you elaborate on that connection?
If we kind of zoom out a little, his framework aligns beautifully with the three traditional branches of Stoic philosophy:
Which are?
logic, ethics, and physics.
Okay. So how do those connect to his three fields?
But here's the thing. He wasn't interested in getting bogged down in those theoretical complexities.
So he wanted to make these principles useful in everyday life. Less theory, more practical application.
Yeah, exactly. He believed that true wisdom lies not just in understanding these concepts intellectually, but in embodying them.
So putting them into practice?
Yes, in our thoughts, actions, and choices.
Okay. So if you had to pick the absolute core of Epictetus's teachings, what would it be?
This phrase that you'll find throughout his work.
Okay.
What is up to us?
What is up to us? That does sound familiar.
This question lies at the heart of his philosophy. He constantly emphasizes that we have complete control over our thoughts, judgments, and will,
Good.
but we have absolutely no control over external events.
Oh, interesting.
So it's about recognizing that fundamental distinction between what we can and cannot control.
Okay.
So we waste so much energy worrying about things outside our influence,
Things we can't change.
like wealth, reputation, even our health.
So he's saying to shift our focus inward.
Exactly. True freedom comes from directing our energy inward, focusing on cultivating our own character, our virtues, our inner strength.
It's about recognizing where our true power lies. Okay, this is all fascinating, but I'm also curious about how Epictetus lived his own life. Was he like this perfect Stoic, always embodying these principles?
Well, the sources suggest that he was incredibly self-aware,
Self-aware, okay.
and he didn't shy away from humor.
Oh, interesting.
He often used irony and wit to kind of drive his points home.
So he wasn't just this super serious philosopher.
No, he recognized that living a Stoic life is a constant practice.
A journey.
It's not about achieving perfection,
Right.
but about striving to live in accordance with reason and virtue.
So even Epictetus, this renowned Stoic philosopher, acknowledged that it's an ongoing process. We're all works in progress.
Precisely. And remember, he developed and taught his philosophy while going through incredibly difficult times.
What do you mean?
I mean, slavery, exile, political turmoil. If he could find peace and freedom amidst those challenges.
It gives hope for the rest of us.
Exactly. That no matter what life throws our way, there's a path forward.
This is all incredibly inspiring. We've covered a lot already. His life, Stoic principles, the connection to Socrates, the three fields of study, this focus on what's up to us. But what stood out to you the most from the source material? What was your biggest aha moment in diving into Epictetus's world?
What struck me most powerfully was Epictetus's emphasis on the power of choice
Choice.
in every situation. You see, we often feel trapped by circumstances.
Believing we have no control.
Right. But he reminds us that we always have a choice in how we respond, how we interpret events, and how we let them affect our inner state.
It's like reclaiming your power in any situation.
It really is.
Yeah.
He even suggests that we have a choice in how we experience things like illness and even death.
Wow, that's pretty radical.
It is. It challenges our fundamental assumptions about what it means to be human.
And where our true power lies.
Exactly.
So how do we bridge that gap between these ancient teachings and modern life? How can we apply Epictetus's wisdom to the challenges we face today?
I think it's more relevant than ever.
In what way?
We are bombarded with information and pressures and expectations today.
Constantly.
It's so easy to feel overwhelmed, anxious, and disconnected.
From what truly matters.
Exactly. And Epictetus offers this framework for simplifying,
Okay.
for focusing on what's essential: our own character, our judgments, and our responses to the world around us.
So it's about finding that stillness amidst the chaos.
Yes. His teachings provide a path to greater clarity, resilience, and inner peace.
Even amidst the chaos of modern life, it's about being more intentional with how we live our lives.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that sense of agency, recognizing that our true freedom lies within us,
Within our own minds.
in our capacity to choose how we respond to the world around us.
It sounds like he's giving us a key to unlock a different way of being in the world. A way of experiencing life with greater intention and inner peace.
He is. And that key lies within each of us. It's our prohairesis, our capacity to choose. It's the essence of what it means to be human, to be a rational agent capable of shaping our own destiny.
That's a powerful idea, and it's definitely given me a lot to think about. But before we dive deeper into that concept of prohairesis, I think it's time for a short break. We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into the world of Epictetus.
Welcome back to our exploration of Epictetus. Before the break, we were discussing this idea of prohairesis, the capacity for choice that lies at the heart of his philosophy. And it's a concept that ties into his emphasis on focusing on what is up to us. Can you elaborate on that connection?
Absolutely. Prohairesis is our ability to make choices to exercise our will. It's what separates us from animals and gives us the power to shape our own lives. And for Epictetus, it's the key to freedom and happiness.
Okay, so we have this power to choose. But how does that play out in real life? How does it actually help us deal with the challenges and uncertainties that we all face? Imagine you're facing a difficult situation, something you have absolutely no control over. Maybe you've lost your job or you're dealing with a serious illness. It's natural to feel overwhelmed, angry, or even despairing. But Epictetus reminds us that even in those moments, we still have a choice. We can choose how we react to the situation.
So it's not about denying our emotions or pretending that everything's fine. It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose our response.
Exactly. And that choice, that act of exercising our prohairesis, is where we find true freedom. Because even if we can't control the external situation, we can control our inner world.
It's about finding that inner strength and resilience to navigate the ups and downs of life without being completely swept away by them.
Exactly. And that's where Epictetus's practical advice comes in. He provides us with these specific tools and techniques to strengthen our prohairesis and live a more intentional and fulfilling life.
So let's dive into some of those practical tools. What are some of the key pieces of advice that Epictetus offers for cultivating this capacity for choice and living in accordance with Stoic principles?
One of the most powerful practices he recommends is examining our impressions. We're constantly experiencing things through our senses, but it's our judgments about those experiences that truly affect us. Epictetus urges us to pause and analyze our impressions rather than blindly accepting them as truth.
So if something happens that triggers a negative emotion, don't just react impulsively. Take a step back, question your assumptions, and choose a more reasoned and constructive response.
Exactly. He also emphasizes the importance of reframing challenging situations as opportunities for growth. Instead of seeing obstacles as setbacks, view them as tests, as chances to practice your Stoic principles and strengthen your character.
It's about finding the opportunity and the difficulty, using challenges as fuel for growth and self-improvement.
Yes, and it ties into another essential piece of advice. Focus on what you can't control. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly profound. We waste so much energy worrying about things that are outside our power. Epictetus reminds us to direct that energy inward, to cultivate our own virtues, and to focus on what we can actually influence.
It's a powerful reminder to shift our focus from externals to our own inner world.
And when we do that, we tap into a source of strength and resilience that can help us weather any storm.
This all makes sense in theory, but I'm curious about how Epictetus himself embodied these principles. Was he always a perfect Stoic, flawlessly living out his philosophy? Or did he experience moments of doubt, frustration, or even anger?
Like all of us, he was human. But the sources suggest he had a remarkable level of self-awareness and a keen sense of humor, often using irony and wit to illustrate his points. He acknowledged that living a Stoic life is a constant practice, a daily effort to align our actions with our principles. It's not about achieving some kind of perfect state, but about striving for excellence in our character and actions, even amidst the inevitable imperfections of human existence.
It's comforting to know that even Epictetus, this renowned philosopher, recognized that it's a journey, not a destination. There's always room for growth and learning.
He wouldn't want us to think of it as a struggle, though. He saw Stoicism as a path to freedom and joy, not a set of rigid rules to follow.
It's about embracing life on life's terms, but doing so with a clear mind and a strong sense of purpose.
Exactly. And remember, he lived through some incredibly difficult times. Slavery, exiles, political upheaval. If he could find peace and freedom in those circumstances, it offers hope for all of us.
That's truly inspiring. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. Epictetus's life, Stoic principles, his connection to Socrates, the three fields of study, the concept of prohairesis, and the importance of focusing on what's up to us. I feel like I have a much better understanding of who he was and what he taught. But I'm wondering what stood out to you the most as you explored these texts. What was your biggest aha moment?
You know, for me, the most compelling aspect of Epictetus' philosophy is emphasis on this interconnectedness of all
The
things.
interconnectedness.
He often refers to this as the divine order of the universe, suggesting that we are all part of a larger whole connected to each other and to the cosmos.
That's a powerful idea, and it seems particularly relevant today as we grapple with these global challenges and a growing sense of interconnectedness through technology.
Absolutely. And Epictetus takes this idea even further with this concept of the God within.
Okay, hold on. Are we getting into religious territory here?
It's not necessarily about religion in the traditional sense. It's more about recognizing our interconnectedness with something larger than ourselves. Whether we call that God, nature, or the cosmos,
Yeah.
it's about acknowledging that we're not isolated individuals, but part of a web of relationships and interconnected systems.
So it's not about worshiping a deity, but about aligning ourselves with the natural order of things, recognizing our place within this grand scheme of the universe.
That's a great way to put it. And this sense of interconnectedness has profound implications for how we live our lives.
How so?
It encourages us to act with greater responsibility, compassion, and awareness of the impact our choices have on others and the world around us.
It's a beautiful and challenging idea, and it's definitely something I'm going to be reflecting on more deeply. But before we get too lost in the cosmic implications of Epictetus's philosophy, I want to bring us back to some of his more practical advice. He's known for offering some incredibly wise and actionable guidance on how to live a better life. What are some of his most memorable pieces of wisdom that we can apply to our own lives today?
One of his most potent pieces of advice is about learning to let go of what we cannot control. This is a fundamental principle of Stoicism, but Epictetus drives it home with such clarity and forcefulness.
So it's about recognizing that clinging to things we can't control only leads to frustration, anxiety, and a sense of helplessness.
Exactly. And when we let go of that need for control, we free ourselves to focus on what truly matters, cultivating our character, strengthening our inner world, and acting in accordance with our values.
It's a powerful message, and it resonates deeply with me. But how do we actually put this into practice? How do we learn to let go of that need to control everything?
Epictetus offers a variety of techniques. One is to simply remind ourselves constantly what is and is not up to us. It's like a mantra we can repeat to ourselves whenever we feel that urge to control things that are beyond our reach. Another technique is to practice mindfulness, paying attention to our thoughts and feelings without judgment, observing our tendency to cling and control. And finally, he encourages us to focus on our own actions, on what we can actually do to improve ourselves and the world around us.
So it's a combination of awareness, acceptance, and action. We become aware of our tendency to control. We accept that some things are simply beyond our influence, and then we focus our energy on what we can actually do to create positive change.
Exactly. Yeah. And as we cultivate this practice of letting go, we discover a sense of inner peace and freedom that we never knew existed.
It's about shifting our focus from the external to the internal, recognizing that true happiness and fulfillment come from within.
Precisely. And this brings us to another key piece of advice from Epictetus: the importance of choosing our response to every situation.
Okay, so we've talked about letting go of what we can't control, but what about those things we can influence? How does Epictetus advise us to approach those situations?
He reminds us that we always have a choice in how we respond to any event, even those that seem negative or challenging. We can choose to react with anger, frustration, or despair. Or we can choose a different response, one that aligns with our values and principles.
So it's about recognizing that we have agency, even in difficult circumstances. We can choose our attitude, our perspective, and ultimately our actions.
Exactly. And the choices we make day after day shape our character and determine the quality of our lives.
This all makes perfect sense, but I'm curious about how Epictetus addressed the concept of death. Did he believe that even death was something we could choose our response to?
That's a fascinating question, and it takes us to the heart of Epictetus's understanding of the God within. Remember, he believed that there's a divine spark within each of us, a connection to the universal reason that governs all things. And because death is part of that universal order, he saw it as something to be embraced, not feared.
So it's not about denying the reality of death, but about approaching it with a sense of acceptance and even gratitude for the life we've been given.
Exactly. And this acceptance of death, paradoxically, can lead to a more vibrant and meaningful life. When we're not consumed by fear of the unknown, we're free to live fully in the present moment, appreciating every experience and connection.
It's a profound and challenging idea, and it's definitely something I'm going to be reflecting on further. But for now, I think we've reached a natural stopping point in our exploration of Epictetus's teachings.
It's been a rich and insightful discussion, and I hope our listener has gained some valuable insights into this remarkable philosopher's wisdom.
Me too. And before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with a question to ponder. If we truly embrace Epictetus's teachings on the power of choice, on focusing on what's up to us, and on recognizing our interconnectedness with all things, how might that transform our relationships, our work, and our overall experience of life? It's a question worth exploring, and I encourage you to take some time to reflect on it. We'll be back in a moment for our final thoughts and takeaways from this deep dive into the world of Epictetus. Welcome back to our final reflections on Epictetus. We've explored his life, delved into Stoic principles, and uncovered those practical nuggets of wisdom that can help us all navigate the challenges of modern life.
It's amazing how his teachings from almost 2,000 years ago are still so relevant today.
I'm curious, what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about Stoicism? Because from what we've discussed, it seems much deeper than just suppressing your emotions.
That's a great question. I think many people get caught up in that idea that Stoics are supposed to be these emotionless robots, just enduring whatever life throws their way.
Right, like just gritting their teeth and bearing it.
Exactly. But that's such a surface-level understanding. It's not about denying our emotions. It's about recognizing we have a choice in how we respond to them.
So it's about recognizing that we have agency, even when things are tough, that we can choose a different path.
Exactly. Epictetus would say it's about aligning our will with the will of nature, recognizing that there's an order to the universe. And we find true freedom by working with it, not fighting against it.
It's like surrendering to what is, but not in a passive way, more like understanding the flow of the universe and moving with it.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
It's not about being passive. It's about being more effective with our actions, focusing on what we can influence.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Now, as we wrap up, what are some of those key takeaways our listener can use to start applying these ideas in their own life?
Start small. Epictetus himself emphasized that. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one teaching that resonates with you.
Okay, so what could that look like in practice?
Maybe it's the idea of examining your impressions before you react to something. So next time you feel that surge of anger or frustration, just pause. Analyze why you feel that way. Is it a valid judgment, or are you letting external events control your emotions?
That's a great example. Or maybe they could try focusing on what's up to them for just one day.
Exactly. Focus on your own actions, your own thoughts. Don't get swept up in things you can't control, like the news or other people's opinions. See how that changes your day.
It's about taking back that power, right? But it sounds like a continuous practice, something you have to work at consistently.
Absolutely. It's a lifelong journey. And, be patient with yourself. Don't get discouraged if you slip up. Just keep practicing. Keep coming back to those core Stoic principles.
So it's not about becoming a perfect Stoic, but about making those small changes that lead to a more fulfilling life.
Exactly. And remember, you're not alone on this path. Epictetus's writings are readily available. There are tons of books, articles, even online communities dedicated to exploring Stoicism.
A whole community for support and guidance.
Exactly. It's a testament to the enduring power of his ideas.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful discussion. I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of Epictetus and the power of Stoicism.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring his wisdom with you.
Likewise. And to our listener, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Epictetus. We hope you feel inspired and empowered to take something from his teachings and apply it to your own life.
After all, as Epictetus said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. So, choose wisely.
That's a great note to end on. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking that wisdom that can lead us all to a more fulfilling life.